Well, hi, Jeff.
Hey Belinda, how you doing?
Okay, I kind of feel like I know you at least a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah, and you used to be active on gas before you were famous.
Yeah, famous.
And
Um,
I found out that we were in Mondo Barbie together in '93, and I'm sure we've been in many things together.
we
It's just
probably
that,
have.
yeah, but that one was a kind of a big deal because St. Martin's Press is kind of a
You,
big deal.
you see that I'm holding it up?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a kick. And I want to start by asking you, okay, tell me about your involvement in martial arts.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well that goes way, way, way back. I started practicing a style called Shaolin Do when I was 14 years old, and I loved it. And I did that for a number of years. And then when I went to college, I switched to Taekwondo and earned a black belt in Taekwondo Chung Do Kwan and eventually taught it for a couple of years and then was out for a long, long time. And when my son was 4 years old, I got back into it with him and earned a black belt in a different style of Taekwondo. And then eventually I got old and my body gave out and I'm just not doing it anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I used to post pictures of when you were active in that, and
I
yeah,
loved it so much. It was
yeah,
like the best thing I ever did for myself.
yeah. It does something to your mind too. It strengthens it or something.
Absolutely. And anytime anybody tells me they're going through any kind of trouble in their life, my first thing is to say, you really ought to try martial arts because it's the best thing. It will center you. It'll just make you feel better. It's great.
Right. And you learn that you can do things you didn't think you could. I
Right.
only had a brief experience of 2 years with Kung Fu, but I got something out of it too.
Yeah.
So let's see. You had a book called Endora, no, and you won an Endora Welty Prize for Bohemian New Orleans. You're right. The story of the Outsider and Loujon Press.
Loujon Press.
Loujon. Oh, you do pronounce the J. All right.
Uh-huh. Well, it was Lou and John, the husband and wife.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me about that book and Loujon Press and why you wanted to write about that.
Okay. I was a PhD student at the University of Tennessee, and I am so bad with numbers and also so bad with planning things. I got into this program not realizing that it was a statistics research based program, and I've got to say a phone number out loud before I can punch it in. I'm that awful. And I was afraid, how am I going to do a dissertation at this place when I can't do statistics? I took two classes, but awful. And then I took a class in historiography and learned that I could do that. I could write history. And I had read a couple of Bukowski biographies by that time, and they always had a page or two on the Loujon Press and how they helped Bukowski become Bukowski. But that's all. And I wanted to know more about him. So I asked my professor that I was taking this class with what he thought about doing a dissertation on Loujon. He said, well, sure, why not? But he also said, and I asked him if he would direct it. And he said, yeah, but the only way I will do that is if you eventually publish it as a book. So I decided I was going to start doing my research. And I found an interview with Louise Webb, Gypsy Lou Webb, on the internet somewhere. And I saw the person who interviewed her. I saw how to get in touch with her, the interviewer. And I got in touch and I said, can you give me Louise Webb's contact information? And there is no way on earth she should have done that. But she did. She gave me her phone number. And so I called Lou Webb. And to me, Louise Webb was this superstar. She was somebody who had helped change American literature. And so I'm sitting in my little apartment that my fiance and my wife and I had in Knoxville. And I'm just sweating because I've got to call Louise Webb. I called her up and her sister, and she lived with her sister in Slidell, Louisiana. And her sister answered the phone. Her sister always answered the phone. She's very controlling. And she went and got Lou. And I said, hello, Mrs. Webb. My name's Jeff Weddle. I'm I want to write a dissertation about the Loujon Press, and I'd like to interview you sometime. Well, she thought I meant I wanted to come over to her house right then. She was in Louisiana, I was in Tennessee. She said, "Well, honey, you can't come see me now because the van is waiting for me outside to take me to the senior center." That's where she went every day. That was where her life was. And as far as she was concerned, she was just an old woman whose life had been, she'd had a life, and um, but that wasn't the case. And so she had me talk to her stepson, John Edgar Webb Jr., and let him vet me. And it took a while to convince John Jr. and Lou, that I wasn't some scam artist trying to make a buck off of them. When I finally did, they both opened up, and I conducted lots of interviews. They put me on to other people, and I did archival research at Northwestern and at Indiana University. It was just fantastic. And that was my dissertation. Then, remembering what my professor had said about you've got to publish this, I didn't know how on earth to do that. So I printed up, I think, 5 copies of the dissertation. I didn't know what I was doing. And I sent these hard copies to university presses. I sent one to Kentucky, one to LSU, one to Mississippi, and a couple of others. And all of them came back rejected, except for Mississippi. And in their letter saying they were interested, they scolded me because I got the cover letters mixed up with them in LSU. And so they got the LSU letter, but still they were interested. Partly because I was teaching at a university in Mississippi then, Mississippi University for Women. But they liked the idea of the book. And it took several years after that to turn my horrible graduate student prose into something that could be published. But it finally came out in 2007 and did win the Eudora Welty Prize and inspired a wonderful documentary called The Outsiders of New Orleans, Loujon Press, which anybody can see for free on YouTube. It was directed by a man named Wayne Ewing, and it's a great little film. I'm in it.
Yeah. For those who are not familiar with Loujon Press, uh, well, tell us a little bit about it, who they publish and how long, or what made them so important.
Sure. Well, Loujon Press started in 1960 down in New Orleans. It was John Edgar Webb and Louise Webb. John had been a writer. He wrote short stories and published in some good places, and he'd spent 3 years in the Mansfield State Reformatory in Ohio for an armed robbery he did. He was working as a newspaperman in Cleveland, and he was married to a woman who was an alcoholic, and he had several children, and it was during the Depression, and he was feeling lots of pressure, depending on who you talk to, either lots of pressure to get out of his marriage or lots of pressure to feed his family, whatever. He had this job, had the police beat, and he would always go to a specific precinct, get whatever news there was, and then go write it. Well, one day he had it planned. He went to the precinct. He climbed out a window in the bathroom, went and robbed a jewelry store at gunpoint, and then came back to the precinct and went and covered the robbery with other people. So that's John Webb. That's the kind of guy. Anyway, lots of things happened, but eventually he was out, and he met. Oh, and by the way, the prison he was in, Mansfield State Reformatory, is where they filmed The Shawshank Redemption. So,
Oh, and I
yeah,
love that movie.
yeah. He eventually realized he was never going to be a great writer. He was a good writer, and he published in good places, had a novel published by Dell. I mean, he did very well, but he wanted to be like Hemingway or John Steinbeck. He wanted to be one of the big boys. He realized he wasn't going to be. And so he decided that instead he'd be a great editor. And he contacted a poet named Walter Lowenfels, who was a big deal back in the 40s and 50s. And they formed a friendship, and Lowenfels helped him get his ideas together for the magazine he wanted to publish, The Outsider was to be called, and put him in touch with big name writers. And it was really an amazing thing. They only did a total of 4 issues. One of them's a double issue, so they call it five, but it was four artifacts of the Outsider. They did them all by hand on a hand press, typeset, with hand with pieces of type, and it was a huge job every issue. And they didn't just print a few. The first issue I think was something like 1,200 copies of like 125 pages. I mean, God Almighty! It's a beautiful paper. I wish I thought to bring some with me to my office, but I don't have them with me. But at any rate, they did that throughout the decade of the 1960s, sporadically, and also they published a total of four books, two Charles Bukowski's first two major books, and a couple of books by Henry Miller, and all of these things were absolutely gorgeous. And the one reviewer called them the Rolls Royce of publishers. They were really something special. And if it hadn't been for Loujon, lots of folks say, well, Charles Bukowski was made famous by John Martin and Black Sparrow. True enough, but John Martin would never have known about Bukowski had it not been for Loujon. And his Loujon books were reviewed. This was a tiny little press in New Orleans, and these books were reviewed by the New York Times and the Village Voice and all kinds of places. And that's what put Bukowski on the map. And I don't know that I'm even scratching the surface on how wonderful this is, but if you want to know how wonderful it is, there's this great book called Bohemian New Orleans that I advise anybody to pick up, and the documentary on YouTube, The Outsiders.
Right. Okay. So you are still or currently teaching at the University of Alabama.
I am.
And
I keep it.
what do you teach, and what does it entail? I've got here that you were in library and information studies. Is that what you do now?
Right, right. I teach in the School of Library and Information Studies. I've been here for almost 22 years. Before I went back to graduate school and got my doctorate, I was a public library director. I'd been a director in Maine, and before that, a director in Mississippi, and I'd also been a reference librarian in New Hampshire for a time. So I've got that professional background, and I decided that what I really loved was teaching. So I got the degree, and here I am. And I teach a whole bunch of different things. Over the years, I've taught courses in public library management, collection development, a whole slew of things.
It's all about books, and you love books, and you write books.
Well, we've gone beyond books. So much of it's now electronic stuff.
Right, right. So you have a book in Arabic, I think?
I've got two books in Albanian.
Albanian, that's the language. Okay. Well, tell me, how did this publication come about?
Okay. Well, that's a very nice segue from Bohemian New Orleans, because that was really the thing that made these other two books happen. About 17, 18 years ago, there's this man in Albania, in Kosovo, named Feathered Bajraj, who is a prominent translator of American literature over there. And about 17, 18 years ago, his wife, somewhere, I have no idea where she got it, she found a copy in Kosovo of Bohemian New Orleans and gave it to Fadil, and he read it and enjoyed it. And I guess never forgot about it. And he was on Facebook, and one day he saw me posting poems on Facebook and remembered me from that book, and sent me a message saying, would you mind if I translated this poem into Albanian? Now, I had no idea who he was and why he wanted to do this. I thought he was just some guy in Albania, he's in Kosovo, but who wanted to put like a poem on his page. And the next day, the poem that he asked if he could translate appeared in this really high traffic, good website in Kosovo. And then the day after, another one appeared in a different place. And he just kept going. And I sent him all of my books at that point, without the notion that he would, want to translate a book. I just was so thankful, and it just seemed like the thing to do. And before I knew it, he had translated about 250 poems and published this one first, Vritme Nese Kekok, which I don't know the exact translation of that, but it's off color and has something to do with shooting you in the private parts, I think.
Oh,
And
I,
then go ahead.
I wonder if people in Kosovo are reading it. I guess some people are.
Well, I hope so. It caused enough of a stir that he did this other book,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Okay.
and the most amazing thing happened. I was We have to do annual reviews here, so sometimes I look at the internet to see if anybody's mentioned me that I can put in my packet. And a while back, I found a link to a thing from national television in Albania. They've got a show called Good Morning Albania, like our Good Morning America. Uh, an announcer on Good Morning Albania had chosen one of my poems from that first book, I think, and read it on national television. Fadil didn't know anything about it. He had nothing to do with that happening. Somebody just read it and shared it. You can get to it, if you're interested.
Wow. I just find it so fascinating, and I do notice more and more of that happening, and I've been recipient of some tiny bits of that through individual poems, and I think there's about six languages now where people see something and they ask me. I've never asked anyone to do it, but I'm so honored. It's like code, our language is a code to communication, and then they put their code equal to it side by side with ours, and somehow it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. And it's such fun when something like that happens
yeah,
too.
right. So is your most recent book The Things We Do to Protect Our Own from Meat for Tea?
Yep.
Yeah, I just interviewed, or a couple of weeks ago, Elizabeth McDuffie.
Isn't she great? I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
enjoyed that interview.
Yeah, we had fun. Um, would you like to read, or would you like to show us some more of your books and tell us a little bit about each one, if you have
Okay.
them?
I'd love to. I don't have all of my books here. My 20th book is coming out soon from you know Chris Dean in Indiana.
Oh gosh, yeah, she's so nice. I like
Yeah,
her so much.
she's wonderful. She has a press called Keeping the Flame Alive, and I've
Right.
got a book coming out with her very soon.
Yeah.
Let's see.
She publishes Ron Whitehead, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, she came in running. Yeah.
She's a force.
Yeah.
This was my very first poetry collection. It's a handmade book.
Oh.
A graduate of we've got a book arts program within the library school. It's an MFA program in book arts. And a graduate of that program, who's a really well-known book artist in Alabama, asked me if I'd be interested in her doing a collection of my work. And so she did. It's all handmade.
Oh.
I think it's handmade paper, hand inked, all of it. And so that was my first edition of 45 copies, I think.
What year was that? Uh,
2007, I think. I
uh,
think it came out the same year, I think, that Bohemian New Orleans did. If not, it was around there sometime. Um, let's see. I was a short story writer for a while, and fiction comes very difficult for me, but I've got a collection of short fiction called When Giraffes Flew, and the cover looks like it's a children's book, but it most definitely is not. So
yeah,
don't buy this as a present.
I remember that one. And also Citizen Relent.
Citizen
Citizen
Relent, right
Relent.
here.
I
So,
have the original artwork, and for a while I knew where it was. I know I still have it, but if I ever find it, would you like to have it?
oh, 100%. I would
Oh,
love to.
great, great, great. If I find it again, I'll ask you for your address then.
It's gorgeous. Jonathan Penton down in New Orleans with his Unlikely Books published this one, and I'm really proud of it.
And the
Uh,
artist from El Paso.
and such a nice guy, just a really, really
Yeah,
nice guy.
no, he disappeared a few years ago. Nobody knows where he is.
Really?
He wasn't a citizen, so it's probably because of that he's. We just don't know what happened. We don't
My
know.
goodness, that troubles me because he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, other books. For a while, I was being published by Poetic Justice Books and Art, which was run by a guy named Chris Hagblum. And he did it out of a bookstore that he had down in Florida. And the bookstore closed, and with it, the publishing house did. And one of those books was called Good Party. I did three others. I don't have them with me. Uh, these are my two books that came right before the things we do to protect our own. Um, both of these published by Uncollected Press, Hank Stanton,
Yeah.
Driving the Lost Highway, and Letter to Xhevdet Bajraj, Xhevdet being the brother of Fadil.
Uh-huh.
He was a well-known poet from Kosovo who was expatriated to Mexico for political reasons, for his safety, and really, really fine poet. He died of a brain tumor a few years ago. So
Well, yeah.
that's some stuff I got.
Do you have a couple of poems selected, two or three
I,
poems that you'd
I
like to
do.
read to us?
I do. I'm going to read one first from Letter to Xhevdet Bajraj. It's a poem about my mother, who is one of the most wonderful and fascinating people on the planet. She also, when she was younger, was a writer and wrote short stories. This was a book of hers called People Like Us. That's actually her, that little baby. That's my mom.
Oh,
Yep, really, really fine book. Anyhow, so this is a poem about my mom, and it's called Vic Damone Sang My Mother a Love Song. Gawky teen, poor girl, smarter than most anyone, and boy, could she speak. One contest took her all the way to Chicago, so G, Kentucky was one soul short for a few days. She lost the nationals, but got invited onto a coast-to-coast radio show, rubbing shoulders with Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and Vic Damone, who pulled her to his microphone, where he wrapped her in his arms and sang a song every girl in America thought was just for them. As he gazed into my mother's beautiful eyes, the whole world in a dozen years before I was born.
yeah. I remember those people.
Yeah, yeah, and that really happened.
Mm.
Okay, couple from the things we do to protect our own. I more and more I try to write things that aren't necessarily autobiographical. I've sort of branched out from that kind of thing over the years, and this is one that is not. But I hope there's something to it. It's called Find It. It's all there in the diary, but of course you don't know the girl who wrote it. Never heard of her. You don't know the town where she was despised, or the lonely boy who thought of her often, even as an old man, long after her death. It's all there in the diary, but the diary was lost in a well years ago, dropped in by the girl's hateful sister. The confessions and fears, the staggering truths, the hopes, the dreams, the delicate poetry of the angelic lonesome. It's all there, mixed with the water, and the water is mixed with everyone who drinks from the well. Seek it out if you can. Perhaps her name was Sarah, and maybe she was beautiful. It's all there in the diary, but the diary cannot be reached. Close your eyes and conjure her. It's all there in the darkness inside of you. The secret. All righty. And here is one more. And by the way, I'd sit here and do this all day. This is one more. A friend of mine of many years passed away recently, died in his sleep. It's horrible. He's the most vital, lively person I've ever known. And it's quite a shock. This poem isn't written about my friend Curtis, but because of that, it was on my mind, and I chose to read this one. It's very short. It's called Something I've Learned. We are reminded by the deaths of others that it is always time to be at our work. Art, like fire, burns only so long. There is no excuse for leaving things unsaid.
Yes, yes. All righty. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and honor to meet you face to face, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this so much, and this has been great.
Okay, well, see you around. All
Okay, Belinda, you take care.
right,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.